I have these pretty cellular blinds in my office windows now over in the cottage. Thanks to Cindy Wilson and her vision for cottage renovation, and thanks to all of the people who helped implement that vision. And these shades are not just pretty, but they're also really nice to like raise and lower. And I confess I am someone who's normally a little intimidated by blinds and a little challenged by blind cords and the raising and lowering thereby. But these shades are just like a smooth and easy pleasure to raise and lower. So the other day I went over to my window in the office and I raised my blinds to let a little light in. And I was struck, like really struck, by the beauty of the scenery through that window. Now, we have a lovely campus here at UUI in any season, so it's always a pleasure to be here on the grounds. But this particular day was like peak fall for UUI. The colors were just absolutely brilliant. There was a ring of golden yellow around the parking lot, and across the alley there was this fiery crimson tree in a neighbor's yard that was set off against this green evergreen. And it was just this extravagant, exultant display of artistry. So I went out actually onto the front steps so I could get a clearer look. And as I went out, the wind picked up. It was a really blustery day. And the leaves just began to rain all down, all around me, hundreds at a time, maybe thousands at a time. And it wasn't like this gentle, whispery falling of leaves. It was like a torrent of leaves. It was a blizzard of leaves. And it was really like quite loud and dramatic as all of these leaves are clattering around me. And I imagine at the time that like our UUI grounds and facilities team were like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, you know, when he realizes that Alderaan's destroyed and he like clutches his head and he's like, I felt a grave disturbance in the force, as if millions of leaves have leapt their trees all at once and landed on the UUI parking lot. So this would be a good time as any to mention that our annual fall leaf raking party is 2 Sundays from now. So please plan to bring a rake and jump in. It's wonderful fun time outdoors. Fresh air, kids jumping in leaf piles, adults jumping in leaf piles, followed by a chilly lunch. So we hope you can make it. But when I think of autumn, I often think of it as being like a contemplative season, right? It's a time for slowing down. We're having our last hurrahs with the summer while we still can. It's a time for taking stock. The harvest has been brought in. We're grateful, but we're also beginning the preparations for winter. We're turning inward. We're turning indoors. Autumn is a bit melancholy, maybe, a bit introspective, as the days become colder and the nights become longer. But what I was struck by that day, watching from my office window and then from the outdoor, was actually how riotous it all was. It wasn't melancholy. It was such a flurry of color and motion and noise and activity that I literally like LOL just from the surprise and the happiness of it. So I was in an autumn mood and I aspired to write an autumn service. And I thought in preparation for this, maybe I'd better learn a little bit more about what I was observing. I'm a grown-up, right? I know why leaves fall from trees, but then do I know why leaves fall from trees? I sort of knew. I knew it had something to do with winter, right? And I looked into it a little bit more. And of course, it does have something to do with winter, but there's a little bit more to it than that. So we can start with leaves. Leaves, as you probably know, serve the function of gathering food for the tree through converting sunlight to energy through photosynthesis. That's why trees have leaves to begin with. To function properly, leaves require water, sometimes a lot of water, and that water has to be pumped all the way up the tree and out to its extremities where the leaves live. That is a laborious task, and it requires a lot of water. So you can actually have deciduous trees living in warm climates where it never gets cold, and they will still drop their leaves at the onset of a regular dry season for that climate. So there are trees that live in like tropical forests that still have this leaf fall process because of the dry season. But here in the Midwest, where we do have the winter, the big problem, of course, is the cold, because leaves are delicate creations, and the water crystals that freeze inside the leaves would tear the cell structures to pieces, rendering the leaf completely useless for photosynthesis. And the last thing you want if you're a tree is to be supporting the weight of 50,000 non-functioning leaves. Even less do you want to be supporting that weight once they are covered with snow and coated with ice. So, as the days get shorter and the temperatures get colder, the trees read the writing on the wall, and they prepare to jettison these soon-to-be non-functioning leaves. But it's a process. And first thing they do is they actually go in and they reabsorb all of the useful nutrients from the leaves. They bring it back inside of themselves. Now that process in particular breaks down the chlorophyll, and the chlorophyll is the chemical that turns the leaf green. So in its absence, other colors are now able to show through. The beautiful yellows, the oranges and reds of autumn. These are the natural colors of the leaf absent the chlorophyll. They're there all the time. You just don't see them. Now, some leaves also produce new chemicals called anthocyanins. And these are what turn the leaf like the really super cherry red and the deep purples. And botanists don't know exactly why the tree produces those chemicals, right? Why would you do the extra work of turning your leaf purple if it's just going to fall off anyway? But there are some reasons that the biologists are kicking around. And a famous maxim of biology is that evolution is smarter than you are. So even if we see something in nature and we don't exactly know why it's a good reason to be doing that, probably it's a good reason to be doing that. So now this is the part that I liked. After the tree has withdrawn all of the nutrients from the leaves, it starts to form this special seal called an abscission layer of cork cells that seal the leaf off from the rest of the tree. And this means that the leaf can't keep pulling any more water and nutrients out of the tree. It also means that the tree is sealed and protected. So when the leaf finally breaks away, the tree isn't wounded or hurt in any way. It's like there's a scab that's already formed when the break occurs. So leaves don't just fall off trees. They're not just blown off trees. They are excised from trees at the end of this very careful process of marshaling resources and setting boundaries. Trees practice conscious uncoupling with their leaves, right? Just like Gwyneth. Now, there's another reason why it's not a bad idea for trees to shed all their leaves at the end of summer. Apart from like scarce resources and winter freezes and all of that, it's not an easy life for a leaf. And by the end of the summer, many leaves are damaged, they're diseased, they've been eaten up by bugs, they've been torn by wind and weather, they've been blighted by unfriendly microorganisms. And damaged leaves are less able to live out their leaf purpose and give food to the tree. So the fall shed gives the tree a chance to shake it off, literally, and start over in the spring with a brand new batch of like pristine primo leaves. So the tree is letting go of that which no longer serves it in preparation for a new marshaling of resources when the time is propitious. So E.E. Cummings in our reading sees fall as a metaphor for death. And he writes, "This is the passing of all shining things. Therefore we also blandly into receptive earth, oh, let us descend." He says, "Take, shimmering wind, these fragile splendors from us, crumple them, hide them in your breath, drive them in nothingness, for we would sleep." And autumn as a metaphor for that final sleep and the falling away that we all face. But Maya Angelou, on the other hand, in her poem Late October, sees fall as part and parcel with rebirth. Lovers, only lovers, she says, see the fall as an end to endings, a gruffish gesture alerting those who will not be alarmed that we begin to stop in order to begin again. And so in the autumn season and the falling of the leaves, what Cummings sees as the leaves being stripped away by the wind is in fact the trees letting go. Letting go. It's very purposeful, it's very intentional, self-protective preparation for the tree's own transformation, its rebirth. In Maya Angelou's words, we stop to begin again. And so the tree surrenders itself, surrenders the old, trusting in its own capacity for newness and for regrowth. So a very fall question to ask ourselves now is, what are we feeding in our life that is no longer feeding us? What are we pouring scarce resources into? Money, energy, attention, emotion, that at the end of the day is not going to serve our larger purposes? What do we need to shed, to release, to consciously uncouple with, trusting in our own capacity for newness in a new season? Now, this could be a grand metaphor. There's lots of things we could be releasing, emotions and energy and inhibitions, but it doesn't have to be. Like, we could be releasing actual things and stuff, like the tree is releasing things and stuff. Things and stuff and objects can consume a lot of our attention and energy and emotion and money. Right? If nothing else, all of the stuff that we have has to be stored and maintained and repaired and upgraded. So many people wait for the seasonal, like spring cleaning, for their annual purge and renew. But isn't fall a wonderful season, metaphorically speaking, to say, out with the old? If we divest ourselves of that which no longer serves us now, if we break the habits and excise the bonds and prune away at the accumulations that are only weighing us down now, then we have the winter season to reflect, to process, and to begin the slow germination of the newness that follows. And this doesn't have to be sad or wistful or mournful or melancholy, because with fall, the summer goes out with a blaze of color and a flurry of activity. Fall is a bombast, a celebration, it's a party, and then just like that, it's done. So letting go of the old can feel like winter. It can feel frozen and barren, yet winter is also brilliant and clear and full of life and potential germinating below the surface. Now, I'm going to make a prediction, which is something that I rarely do, but this is not exactly an out there prediction. So I feel simultaneously very comfortable making this prediction and very much hoping that I am wrong. But this is my prediction for all of us. Next year is going to be hard. Hard. And I mean collectively, for us as a country, as a community, it is going to be really hard. Now, individually, for you personally, I hope that 2020 is easy and brilliant and everything that you want it to be and just beautiful. But collectively, for this country, all signs point to a very challenging year. A year of increased polarization and increased destabilization, an expanding extremism, a continued erosion of norms, a year in which we all feel less safe and less certain. So I think that we need as a people to be our best selves in this coming year. We are all going to be asked to rise to an occasion. We don't know what that occasion is yet, but it is going to be there. And we're going to need deep reserves of strength and courage and kindness and humility. We're going to need a lot of patience and generosity with one another. And we're going to need to be as non-anxious as possible in a climate that is designed to make us all as anxious as possible all of the time. All of the time. And so what I'm suggesting then is this is a season to take seriously the demands of self-care, of self-renewal, and of good boundary setting. This is a season for all of us as individuals and communities to get clear about what feeds us, about what increases rather than diminishes our resources, and about what serves our end purposes as healthy, rooted, growing beings. And we should cultivate these things, these good things, and release the rest, and release the rest. And this doesn't have to be serious and it doesn't have to be somber. It can feel like a party. In fact, joy is one of the resources that we most need to be cultivating because joy is going to serve us very well. And laughter, and our ability to delight in one another's company, and our ability to trust ourselves and our community that we are healthy and rooted and vibrant, and to trust in our own ability to regrow. Who does Maya Angelou say has access to this cycle of releasing and beginning? She says, those who love and those who trust, those who will not be alarmed. Now, of course, in this metaphor that I have constructed, in this request that I am putting forward that you cultivate your own self-renewal, I've positioned you as the tree, right? Releasing the leaves and trusting in your own innate capacity for regrowth and regeneration. But returning to our E.E. Cummings poem, we are also, all of us, inevitably the leaves, right? We too are part of the passing of shining things. And that raises a different question, ultimately, and it asks of us a different kind of trust. Considering ourselves as the leaf, what is the tree now that claims us as its own? What are the larger forces of life that we serve for our season? And do we trust that when our season has passed, the living organism to which we have devoted our being and the fullness of our resources, if it is healthy, if it is whole, if it is properly rooted, will it have the wisdom and the wherewithal to survive, to endure? And do we trust that? And can we be not alarmed in our comfort there? Because in the end, all we can do, right, all we can do is serve life faithfully for our season. That is all that can be asked of any of us, that we give the full measure of our love and trust life to take care of life, that we love and do not be alarmed. And when it is time for our own letting go, Cummings offers us as our reward no backward wondering, but straight, glad feet and glory-girded faces. Well, I don't know about that. But I know that there are cycles of falling away and regeneration in our own lives. And there are larger cycles of falling away and regeneration that breathe through the natural world. And I choose to trust that whatever gifts I give in love and faith through the tree of life, they will nourish some healthy growth. There will be some green and innocent exuberance in a season that is not my own. So may we all embrace that which is life-giving to our body, mind, and spirits. Lay down that which no longer serves us, plan joyfully for our own regeneration, and be in turn a life-giving regeneration to something larger than ourselves. And like the autumn leaves, let us not be afraid to do these things brightly and boldly, to blanket creation in the brilliant colors of our own spirit, entrusting ourselves at last to the shimmering wind. Blessed be, and amen.